Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So I did make guides for all of the Carina challenges in volume 2 except for Element Legend ones. To be fair, I kind of considered actually just leaving them because I think they're fairly straightforward, fairly self-explanatory. But I have been having people keep asking me for them. So instead of making a video for each and every single one of them, I will make one video for all three of them, and I'm gonna go over the main points here. So, Teams Aplenty is arguably the hardest Realm of Legends challenge. It's definitely the one that is most finicky. Pretty much everything in this challenge will kind of revolve around Mr. Fantastic and She-Hulk. You can use She-Hulk extremely successfully for majority of the fights, to be honest. And then Mr. Fantastic you can use for rest of the fights, which are typically the skill ones and the Wolverine. You can use Magneto if you want for Winter Soldier. That is what I did. It took a while. It's definitely doable. But if I had to do it over, I'd probably just use Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic is faster, if you play him properly, than Namor or Black Panther and any other champion that you can possibly use. Because Mr. Fantastic's damage output is actually significantly higher than a lot of people believe it to be. And also that the way chance, tankiness, everything else kind of makes the fights safer and easier. She-Hulk is the only exception that actually can do the fights faster than Mr. Fantastic, but obviously she will not be great against skill champions or in some cases against some smaller champions too. But still, I pretty much used She-Hulk for almost all of the fights. So Juggernaut, Rhino, Captain Marvel, Vision, and even Scarlet Witch, and you can even do Wolverine with her if you want, but Mr. Fantastic is going to do it better. And then Black Bolt and Hulk. So for Black Panther, I think I use Namor, but again, you can just use Mr. Fantastic for that one. And you can also use Mr. Fantastic for Winter Soldier if you want. So basically, you have to have She-Hulk, Mr. Fantastic, and Magneto. To deal with Wolverine specifically, I personally recommend, again, Mr. Fantastic with all the 3 pre-fights, and you can get the job done if you have some points in despair. If you do not have any points in despair, then it's probably going to be easier with Magneto. Again, She-Hulk can also do it, but it's still probably going to be easier with Magneto. That is it. You do ideally want to have that despair on with the Mr. Fantastic though. And that's it. We have She-Hulk, Magneto, Mr. Fantastic, only champions that you really need. And you can add in Doctor Strange and Namor or whoever you really want, it doesn't matter. So long as you have Magneto, Mr. Fantastic, She-Hulk. Done. Nothing else is needed there. And job's done. You can, again, use any of those 3 champions for the Wolverine. All 3 of them are capable of doing them. If you use Mr. Fantastic, you ideally need to have Despair. There is a key trick with Mr. Fantastic, by the way, and that is activate all 3 of your pre-fights, let them fall off, and bait out the 3 level 2s from your opponent, and then start stacking them back up, because it's going to be a long fight, and over the course of long fight, if you are using Mr. Fantastic, it's much better if you have careful study passives for level 1 and level 2, you will end up getting much more power. And ideally, again, do give your Mr. Fantastic as much sig as possible. The Aegon one, there's not too much to teach. Aegon one, obviously, you ramp him up, and then you clear the entire thing with him. My personal advice for vast majority of the players with the Aegon run is get to about 500 combo and sacrifice that revive. Honestly, it's extremely tedious to ramp up Aegon against Winter Soldier because you just end up making a mistake. Typically it's 6, 7, 800 combo, and then you feel frustrated. I had to try and ramp up Aegon so I don't waste the revive like 4 times, I think. It was definitely frustrating, and it was not worth the 1 revive that I saved for it. The better way, in my opinion, is definitely pick a number, 500 or something like that, get to it, quit out, save up that combo, get back in that fight, finish it off, and then carry on. That is the biggest piece of advice. Now, I've heard obviously a lot of things also talked about Wolverine fight. But before we get to Wolverine fight, I want to mention Juggernaut fight, where the strategy also needs to be fairly simple. in most of the fights, my personal strategy, just to make it easier for myself, was to use level 3s. Drop a level 3, hit opponents while they are stunned as much as I can, which lets me build up like a bar of power and a half, and then just make it back to up another level 3. The reason I do that is just so opponent is stunned for vast majority of the time. I don't really have an opportunity to make a mistake in meanwhile. I don't need to deal with as much block damage, and it just makes the fights easier. Especially for Juggernaut, when he gets unstoppable every time he throws special attacks, it is just much more easier to drop that level 3 and keep on pounding at him in the corner, and then, you know, try to get another level 3 before he uses his special attack to keep the fight kind of fluid and going. With the Wolverine fight, I have heard a lot of, you know, fuss being made about the masteries and everything else, and that's kind of unnecessary. I think, again, that's just people overcomplicating a very simple thing. Fact of the matter is, pretty much no matter the mastery setup that you're running, if you're gonna keep increasing your combo, if you're gonna keep hitting Wolverine, eventually you're gonna get him down. The number of hits required for you to get him down will significantly depend on your damage output. And obviously in Wolverine fight, if you want to make it easier for you, you do want that Liquid Courage double edge active, you do want as many damage masteries as possible, potentially max out the Despair just in case you can have a stun and a bleed debuff to reduce Wolverine's healing a bit, but it's effectively just a numbers game. You're gonna keep hitting him, your crit rate is gonna go up ever so slightly due to diminishing returns, but it still keeps increasing, and eventually you're gonna get him down. The point is to output as much damage output as you can, and then obviously if you do have some of those Stupefy, Despair Mastery, Petrify, and Pacify, you know, they do help. So do whatever is available to you, but just make sure that your Aegon kind of does as much damage as possible, and that's it. That's the secret to that fight. You know, it really is not worth making it more complex or use this specific mastery setup. No, it doesn't matter that much. Just keep hitting Wolverine. He's gonna die. How quickly he dies does depend on how much damage output you put on. That's about it there. And then the last one, the hunk of junk, is effectively Guillotine 2099 challenge. There's really nothing else to it. You want to take Guillotine 2099, and that's it. I did want to try out, you know, a fight with the Dragon Man, for instance, against Juggernaut, and it's not better. Guillotine 2099 is head and shoulders above every single other champion that you could potentially use. If you do not have Guillotine 2099, then I do ideally recommend just, you know, waiting a bit and trying to get her, because it is going to be significantly quicker if you use Guillotine 2099. You can obviously try and get it done with like Ultron, Warlock, and Nimrod, and Nebula, and something, but it's not really worth the hassle. I would say if you don't have Guillotine 99, just wait a bit, get her. It's a 3-star. You know, it's not going to take that long to get her. But Guillotine 2099 can do every single fight in there. Against Wolverine, you want to specifically spam your level 2s because that will reverse the regeneration. Don't even bother finishing the fight with level 3. And the strategy with Guillotine 2099 is also quite simple. You do not want to be running Liquid Courage Double Edge because they hardly do anything for Gilly. And I activated one pre-fight for every single fight, and that was the regeneration pre-fight, because there's very little point in trying to power control the opponents in Realm of Legends. And also those crits comparatively mean pretty much nothing. You'd much rather have a bit bulkier Guillotine 2099. This was the challenge where I didn't have to use a single item because she always kept herself topped up. And as long as you don't mess up too much, you know, you're going to be finishing it very quickly and it's going to be fairly straightforward. Now, if you do not want to listen to my advice and wait for Guillotine 2099, then obviously I would recommend taking Warlock for Wolverine. Warlock can do that fight relatively well. I did try it for fun with Nimrod. Nimrod would be able to get it done, but it took like forever, so definitely Warlock is better there. And then as like your main damage dealing champion probably would have to be Ultron for any fight where opponents can bleed and you spamming level 2s. And then possibly Nebula or Sentinel for fights where opponents cannot bleed. But again, I highly recommend just waiting for Guillotine 2099. And that's about it. When it comes to mastery setups, teams Aplenty, no Liquid Courage Double Edge recommended at all. King of the combo, I personally did run Liquid Courage Double Edge for this one. I did not run it for the first fight, but it didn't really matter because I just wanted spam level 1s and get my combo up quicker. But you can, do it either way. I do recommend having Liquid Courage Double Edge active for Wolverine fight and perhaps even putting some boosts on for that. And this one, again, the Liquid Courage Double Edge serves absolutely no point. If you do have any other questions, obviously feel free to leave a comment. I'll try my best to answer. And that is about it. See, 10 minutes, 3 Carina challenge guides, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. See you guys later. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about